Hi, I'm Randy Wooden, and welcome to another in our Edge Library series. This time talking to job hunters about questions you should avoid asking. We had a lot of segments on questions that you ought to ask. Now we're going to tackle the ones that you probably need to steer away from. Let's first take the most obvious one, and that is discussing money and benefits. We know not to do it. There are reasons why we don't want to do it, other than just that's the way it's always been. Let me talk about that just for a moment or two. When it comes to money, if I walk in there, and let's assume that they have not seen anything, there was no application, there was nothing that put a number on an online form or anything, and I just simply applied to a position, or perhaps I've been referred by someone. And so again, I don't have a paper trail that has a number on it. If I walk in there and I start talking about dollars too soon, a couple things in play here. One is that it'll be assumed by the employer that I'm really there for the money. And while that may be true, it's not really what I want to convey. Secondly, and this is important, whether you bring it up, which is wrong, or whether they bring up money early on as a screen out device, once a dollar sign is stamped on that forehead, let's again for round numbers use 50 grand. If I walk in and I ask what sort of money there is available and get talking about money, or even worse, I come out and I say, well, I've made $50,000, let me ask you, what does this position pay? You might as well just walk out at that point. It doesn't behoove you to do that, in part because once you've established a number on your forehead, if it's a little bit above where they felt they wanted to ideally look, what would you do if you're a consumer? And I try to say, you're looking to buy a car for, let's say, 20 grand, and I start out by showing you cars that are 30 grand. You're going to say, well, wait a second, my budget's 20. Let me at least check in the 20 grand range first, and if I can't find what I want, then I'll see what extra quality I'm getting for that 10 grand that you're trying to upsell me to. That's how the buying mind works. And so you don't want to go in there with dollars attached to you. Don't bring it up. It distracts from the message, and it's just not proper interview etiquette. Same thing when it comes to talking about benefits, whether it's vacation time, whether it's how soon do my health insurance, how soon will that kick in, to 401k contributions. There's time for that. Right now, you're sort of on your first date, and you're trying to establish whether you have some mutual connection here. If both of you feel like there is, then you move to the next step. Now, having said that, for very low entry-level positions, sure, it could be a one interview, and they say, great, you've got the job, when can you start, and here's your pay, and here, you'll get your orientation, and it'll have all the information. It's very cut and dried, but by and large, most of my clients aren't in that type scenario, and so you want to avoid talking about money. Now, another thought here on questions is to avoid what I would call the closed-ended questions. Now, typically, closed-ended questions are ones that can be answered with a yes or a no, and I'd even extend that a little bit to talk about perhaps even offering a multiple choice. Great example of that is a confrontational question that you really shouldn't ask very early on, and that is, could you tell me why the position is open? Ask that one too soon, and it sort of comes across as confrontational. Now, why is the position open is an open-ended question because it allows for them to, explain why it's open. But if you follow that up with, is it newly created, or is it a replacement, or what? That sort of thing. Now you're offering a choice, and it sort of boxes the person in. It almost feels like he's being preached to in some way, and it doesn't sit well with me if somebody does that. If you're going to ask me a question, ask it and let me answer it in the way I want to. Don't offer me multiple choice. Is it this or that? Don't do that. Just ask me the question. So avoid the money, avoid the benefits, avoid the closed-ended. For instance, do you offer training? Not a good question. Not only don't I like the word training, and we'll get into that in our next segment, but also it's a yes or no. And simply, most companies, even if their training stinks, they'll still say they have it, all right? So don't go there. Don't ask that question. That's going to wrap it up for this segment in our Edge Library Series, Part 1, with questions you might want to avoid asking in the interview. I'm Randy Wooden. Thanks for watching.